Okay, so we're gonna make the bread. The first thing we need to do is put 1 cup of lukewarm water into the bowl. So that is water that is not cold or hot. It's right in the middle. If you put a hot water, it kills the yeast. So we're gonna get a little packet of yeast now. You shake it up a little bit like this, cut the top off, and you are going to dump the yeast into the water, all of it. Make sure you have it all there. Then to activate the yeast, you have to add 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I'm just using a regular tablespoon. It helps activate the yeast. Then after that, you add, and this is my addition to the recipe. The recipe usually, one recipe that I saw asks for 2 tablespoons of butter, but I feel for this bread, olive oil makes it better. So 2 tablespoons, there it is, of olive oil. You mix it up and you just gotta let it sit for a little bit until the yeast is activated and starts to bubble. So we're gonna leave that aside. Now into the dry ingredients, we're going to add 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You may also use bread flour if you choose to, but you should not use self-rising because self-rising already has baking soda, baking powder in it. So we're doing 2.5 cups. So I did 2 full cups, and I'm gonna do now about a half. I know I can add a little bit more. That's why I'm not being super precise with a half, because I know that I'm gonna have to add more for the dough to be at the right consistency. Then you need, I would say about a teaspoon of salt. Let's keep going. That's not a teaspoon yet. And you see I'm not using measuring spoons, but it's okay. You can use a measuring spoon. There you go. That's about a teaspoon, maybe a little bit less than a teaspoon, but that's all right because we dip this bread in oil and salt and pepper. And this is Italian seasoning. This is actually something Mr. Gondry gave to me. So you put 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. So it's a mixture of rosemary and fennel and basil, dry basil. It's all dried. You mix it all up so it's very well incorporated. And later, when your yeast mixture is ready, we're going to add this to the wet mixture. So there you can see that the yeast, oils, sugar, and water mixture is starting to bubble up. And it's because the yeast is getting activated. So now it's time for us to add the dry ingredients. So I'm gonna put a bit at a time. So I'm gonna put some in first. And you can see that my mixer has a dough hook. So this helps you to knead the bread. It's much better than doing it by hand. It's exhausting to do it by hand. So I'm gonna turn it on and that's gonna start mixing. I'm gonna let it incorporate well and then add some more. All right, so I see how it's mixed, and I am gonna put all of the rest of my flour mixture into it. Now guys, this is not gonna be enough. I know that the mixture is still gonna be wet and we're gonna have to add flour little by little until it gets to the right consistency. So let's incorporate this much and then we'll add a little bit more. Okay, so it has mixed for about 30 seconds, and see how the flour all around is starting to dry up. So when it starts to dry up a little bit like that, you just make sure that things are not getting stuck on the side of the bowl. So you just do that, and then we're gonna keep on going. For this recipe, the dough has to be kneaded for 10 minutes. But there's probably a chance that I might have to add a little bit more flour. So I'm gonna start kneading, and the kneading for 10 minutes, okay? Okay, so I told you that it would take about 10 minutes to knead this dough, and actually it doesn't, because it would take 10 minutes to do it by hand. But since we're using a machine, it's not necessary. The machine is stronger than our hands. Now, the dough still feels a little bit sticky, not too much. The last time I made it was a little bit stickier than this, so because of that, I am going to add a little bit more flour. Because I don't want it that sticky, but I don't want it. You always, with flour, you put little bit by little bit, because you can always add in, but once you put in, you cannot take it away. So let's just do a little bit more, maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds to see if okay, let's see now. Feels good to me. See how I'm touching it and it's not sticking to my hand, and that's what you want. It's still a tiny little bit sticky, but not too much, and that's fine, because you want your bread to be soft. You don't want it to be super tough. So you can pick up the dough. Now you have this bowl here. I got this glass bowl that I have, and I coated the bowl with oil. You can use any oil. You can use olive oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, just so that the dough doesn't stick to the bowl. What I like to do then, I like to fold my dough a little bit like that, so that the folded part is on the bottom and the smooth side is on the top. There it is. Now it's ready. It has to rest for 1 hour, until it has approximately doubled in size. So what I'm gonna do, when you are letting a dough rest, you need to make sure that it's in a place that is somewhat warm. It's not supposed to have heat necessarily, but it has to be a little bit warm. So what we usually do, I put a little bit of press and seal on top, a dish towel on top, and then a good place to keep it is inside the microwave. So here we go. I'm gonna put it inside my microwave, and look at the time. It's 3:11. We're gonna check again when it's 4:11 and see if it has doubled in size. Okay, so we're gonna take the bread out. Now, I left it in for a little longer than an hour. I looked at it and I didn't feel like it had doubled in size, so I left it in there for just maybe 20 minutes more, so an hour and 20 minutes. So now we take it and have a look at it. The dough looks about twice as big as the size that we started with. And the reason why you put oil is so that when you lift it, see, it doesn't stick. So what you have to do now, you need to get a little bit of flour and pour it to a board, and you're just gonna push the air out of this dough. Okay, so you're gonna kind of like get the air out. And when you do that, right after that, you're gonna split the dough in half. I don't wanna overwork it, so we're gonna stop, not gonna knead it again. I'm gonna split my dough in half. And then I'm gonna do the same thing as I did before. I'm gonna fold it so that the crease stays on the bottom and the top is smooth. Same thing with this one. Fold it so that the bottom has the crease, but the top is smooth. Now what I'm gonna do, these pots are called Dutch ovens. I don't know why they're called Dutch ovens. They're very heavy. What we're gonna do is you get a piece of parchment paper and you put it on the bottom of the Dutch ovens. Now, you don't have to bake the bread in a Dutch oven. The Dutch oven makes it be a little bit, the crust be a little bit crispier than if you were to bake it in a baking sheet, but you can bake it in a baking sheet. I'm putting the parchment paper so it doesn't stick. The last time I made it, it stuck a little bit. It still came out fine. But I just had to labor a little bit with the wooden spoon, just getting it the bottom off. So I'm just going to spread the olive oil right there to coat my pot and the parchment paper. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get each one of my halves of the bread dough, and I'm going to put in the middle of the pot. Now my hands are a little dirty, so let me wipe them. I'm going to get the pots, the lids, and I'm going to cover the Dutch ovens. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put it over here. I'm not gonna put it back in the microwave because there isn't enough space. And it has to rest again for 45 minutes. So we'll check again in 45. All right, so I preheated the oven to 385, 375, 385 is fine. And my dough has grown a little bit more. You see that it feels soft. So what I like to do is I like to sprinkle a little bit more of the Italian seasoning up on top. Okay, then you're going to cover the Dutch ovens and you're going to place them both in the oven. I'm gonna have to remove my cookie sheets. They shouldn't be there anyway, but they are. And I'm going to put the first one in. And I'm going to put the second one in. Lid on. And we're gonna leave it there for approximately 25 minutes. And then we're gonna come back and take the lid off and see the status of it and probably put it on broil for a little bit. Okay, so the timer is up. So what I'm gonna do right now, I am going to take the lid off. I like my stuff crunchy and I don't like pale baking. So I'm going to take the lid off of my Dutch oven and I am going to let the bread just get a little bit of color. See, it's cooked all the way. It's a little, you can see how it's flaky. The outside looks good. I just want a little bit of color. So I'm gonna put the broil on for, I don't know, a minute or two. So broil's on. I'm gonna stay here and keep an eye on it because it can burn very quickly. Okay, so it looks like it's good. It's been about 2 minutes in the broiler. And here are our loaves of Italian rustic bread. So now what you do is you need to get the bread out of the pot. It's gonna be very hot. And I'm gonna put it here on my board. Look, it smells so good. There it is. So we're gonna let it cool a little bit. We still wanna eat it warm because warm bread is delicious. But I'm gonna let it cool just a little bit before we cut into it. And I'm gonna show you how we like to eat it in my house. Okay, so this is where I like to dip, how I like to dip my bread. So there's some olive oil. I put some more of the Italian seasoning there. And then some salt. There you go. So now let's go to the bread. So I'm gonna split the bread. There you go. It's still nice and warm. Sometimes we just rip it. And then what we do is we just cut bits of it and dip in the olive oil and enjoy it. I hope you like it.